Hey guys, here we are in another chapter of The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane. I'm going to read with my buddy BB-8 today. All right? Anybody else a fan of BB-8? I mean, I thought R2D2 was kind of awesome and cute, but then this guy came out, and yeah, so he's just going to stay here with me uh, for this one because he's just cool that way. At the end of the last chapter, we had Edward and Bull, and I believe it was Lucy, the dog. They were going out, having an adventure. Edward loves his singing, so the hobo can sing. So I want to know, what do you guys think is going to happen in this adventure? Is he going to get lost again? Is he going to do something specifically as he travels with the hobo? To go and make a quick prediction to yourself, to your parent, to your brother and sister, go and make a prediction now. Hey, buddy, I think that they're going to travel through cars or maybe get picked up by a person and travel somewhere. What do you think? He's indifferent. He doesn't care. But hey, we're moving on. So here we go, chapter 14. At first, the others thought that Edward was a great good joke. A rabbit, the hobo said, laughing. Let's chop him up and put him into new stew's pot. Or when Bull sat with Edward, carefully balanced on his knee, one of them would call out, Got yourself a little dolly there, Bull? Edward, of course, felt a surge of anger at being referred to as a doll. But Bull never got angry. He simply sat with Edward on his knee and said nothing. Soon the men became accustomed to Edward, and the word of his existence spread. So was that when Bull and Lucy stepped out to a campfire in another town, another state, another place entirely, the men knew that Edward were glad to see him. Blown! They shouted in unison. Edward felt a warm rush of pleasure at being recognized and being known. Whatever it was that had begun in Nellie's kitchen, Edward's new and strange ability to sit very still and concentrate on the whole of his being on the stories of another became invaluable around the hobo campfire. Look at Malone, said Jack one evening. He's listening to every dang word. Certainly, said Bull. Of course he is. Later that night, Jack came and sat next to Bull and asked if he would borrow the rabbit. Bull handed Edward over, and Jack sat with Edward upon his knee. He whispered in Edward's ear. Helen, Jack said, that Jack Jr. and Taffy, he's the baby. Those are my kids. They're all over in North Carolina. You ever been to North Carolina? That's a pretty state. That's where they are. Helen, Jack Jr., Taffy, you remember their names, right, Malone? After this, whenever Bull and Lucy and Edward went, some tramp would take Edward aside and whisper the names of his children in Edward's ear. Betty, Ted, Nancy, William, Jimmy, Eileen, Skipper, Faith. Edward knew what it was like to say over and over and over and over again the names of those he had left behind. He knew what it was like to miss somebody, and so he listened. And in his listening, his heart opened wide and wider still. The rabbit stayed lost with Lucy and Bull for a long time. Almost 7 years passed, and in that time, Edward became an excellent tramp. Happy to be on the road, restless when he was still, the sound of the wheels and the tracks became a music that soothed him. A man entering the freight car one time shone a flashlight in the Bull's face and then kicked him awake. You bum, he said, you dirty bum. I'm sick of you guys sleeping here everywhere. This ain't no motel. Bull sat up slowly. Lucy started to bark. Shut up, said the man, and he delivered a swift kick to Lucy's side and made her yelp in surprise. All his life, Edward had known what it was like. A rabbit made of china, a rabbit in bendable arms of legs and ears. He was bendable, though, only if he was in the hands of another. He could not move himself at all. And he never regretted this more deeply than he did right now when he and Bull and Lucy were discovered in an empty rail car. Edward wanted to be able to defend Lucy, but he could do nothing. He could only lie there and wait. Say something, said the Bull. Bull put his hands up in the air and he said the man to the Bull, sorry. Bull put his hands up in the air and he said, we are lost. Lost. Ha, I bet you're lost. And then the man said, what's this? And he showed the line right at Edward. Well, that's Malone. What the heck? He poked at Edward with the toe of his boot. Things are out of control. Things are out of hand. Not on my watch. No, sir, not when I'm in charge. The train suddenly lurched into motion. No, sir, said the man again. He looked down at Edward. No free ride for rabbits. He turned and flung open the door of the rail car, and he turned back, and with one swift kick, he sent Edward sailing out into the darkness. The rabbit flew through the late spring air. From far behind him, he heard Lucy's anguished howl. Ow! Edward landed with almost an alarming thump, and then he tumbled and he tumbled and he tumbled. He could not hear Lucy, and he could not hear the train. Edward looked at the stars. He started to say the names of the constellations, but then he stopped. Bull, his heart said. Lucy. How many times Edward wondered would he have to leave without getting the chance to say goodbye? A lone cricket started up a song, and Edward listened. Something deep inside of him ached. He wished that he could cry. And that's the end of chapter 13, okay? So, I think there was a picture in there. There was not. My bad. So, your two questions are, okay? One, just a straight up summary. I want to know what happened to Edward on the train, okay? So it's going to be a few sentences here. If you're going to write it, you're going to say it, okay? So what happened to Edward when he and Bull and Lucy got on the train, okay? And the next one, put a little thought into it. I want to know how did Edward feel about Bull and Lucy now? Okay, a little different than how he felt when he first met them. So I want you to say how did Edward feel about Bull and Lucy at this point of the story? All right, a little more than halfway. All right, so we're gonna find out what happens next tomorrow. Have a good one, guys.